Hello, my name is Marissa Hosp, and I'm here to do the video portion of my favorite brain, and the part of the brain that I picked is the amygdala. So it'll be pretty easy if you want to follow along with the PowerPoint that I attached. I'm just going to be reading through the slides as if I was doing a presentation for the class. So the amygdala, the location of it is deep in the temporal lobe region of the brain, nor near the frontal portion. It's near the end where the hippocampus is located. And if you were to flip the brain upside down and locate the hippocampus and remove the uncus, you would see two amygdalae. The amygdalae are almond shaped and they're made of nervous tissue. So now that we know where it is, most importantly, what does it do? Why is it important to us? There's really two main functions, really one main function, but it does play a role in a lot of other things. So I kind of took it down to two functions that it does. The first function would be the perception of all of our emotions, and I will dig deeper into that in a couple more slides here. And then it also plays a role in our sexual activity and libido. And there's been quite a few different experiments that they've done on that have proven like the size and texture and color and everything change based on age. Sometimes if a male has been castrated, that kind of stuff. So very interesting there. So let's dig deeper into what the perception of emotion means. Any event that has triggered an emotional response in your life, whether it be happiness, sadness, traumatic, the amygdala stores those memories and those emotions, and it prepares you for it in future events. So from what I was reading and kind of what I gathered, it's going to be most functional in a situation where there's like immediate fear, danger, something where your body needs to be ready for fight or flight. So definitely stores the memories and prepares you for aggression and fear the best. Not that it doesn't relate things that are happy too, but that's like the main function. So an example, probably one of the most common examples would be if you were bit by a dog at some point in your life. The amygdala will help process that event, the emotions, and then increase your fear or alertness to that situation if there was a dog near you in the future, just so you're more aware and hopefully prevent that from happening again. The amygdala also plays a key role in classical conditioning of the emotional response, which is another reason that I picked it, because I feel like classical conditioning is something that happens across the board in psychology. So there's numerous experiments. And that actually brings us to our next slide, classical conditioning of the emotional response. So I chose an investigation that was in our textbook for this portion of it, and it was about classically conditioning a threat in rats. And basically, this experiment was a tone, which is the conditioned stimulus, is followed by an electric shock to the feet, which is an unconditioned stimulus. And then the conditioned response, obviously, for the rat after being shocked is to change the behavior to avoid that threat. So in this circumstance, if he was going to go eat or get a drink and he felt that shock on his feet after he heard the tone, in this case, he's freezing to avoid any possible, any possible way to receive that shock. So in this case, the body's response was to freeze. So following this pattern with the tone and the shock, eventually just the tone alone will elicit a signal for defense. So like I said, in this case, freezing, but that could be a lot of different things, fight or flight. So what exactly is the amygdala doing during these kind of experiments for classical conditioning? Well, information from the tone and the shock, the conditioned stimulus and the unconditioned stimulus, go to the lateral nucleus of the amygdala, and the central nucleus sends out defensive responses. So in the future, when that conditioned stimulus is present alone, the amygdala, responds more strongly with the threat response. So definitely an important thing. I would say this could be related to any kind of situation where you're trying to relearn a behavior, and obviously probably not with shock, but there's just a lot that we can learn from this conditioned behavior of the amygdala. So why is this so cool to me? Why did I pick it? Well, obviously doing a ton of research was very, very, very interesting. You can get lost in a rabbit hole of information about the amygdala. But upon further research, I found that even though the amygdala is a paired structure. Animals and mammals can live with just one. And something really interesting that I was seeing across the board is whenever, like, maybe a stroke patient or someone like that has damage to one of the amygdalae, um, they have no fear response. So they were giving them a test and showing them different faces, and they were able to identify numerous different emotional responses. But surprisingly, they weren't able to identify a face of fear, which to you and I, someone who has that response, we would definitely understand that someone is scared. There's something scary. That's fear, a fearful expression. So to me, that'd be cool, maybe. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of positives for having it, but not being afraid of spiders the minute I see them might be kind of cool. But that brings me to my next point, that the amygdala is your body's fear factory. So everything that's ever caused an emotional response, negative or positive, is recorded there. So I guess it's something to be thankful for, because imagine if you were to burn your hand touching a burner that's hot. If you just kept repeatedly touching it because you had no memory of the pain and, the fear that response elicited, I mean, how much would that suck to have to continually do that? It would just be terrible. So it's definitely a good thing that it is kind of like the body's own fear factory. But it can also, too much fear is a bad thing. And that's kind of what I wrote my paper about, was the PTSD and PTSS symptoms, and kind of how the amygdala plays a role in that. So then some other food for thought, because I'm kind of into the holistic whole body. What can we be doing, to live our best life? When your body is receiving signals of stress, many different systems work together. It's definitely not just the amygdala, but the amygdala's role is to take the emotions and the responses and record them and help you for the future and how to avoid that. Well, what do you do when a stressor in your life is something that you can't get rid of, like work or school or both, and there's something that you have to kind of get through until you get to the next place in your life? Well, your body's in a constant state of stress, so your amygdala is hypersensitive to everything, trying to help you, also working with many other body systems, and you have excess cortisol because you are so stressed out, but you just can't get out of it. So it's working overtime, and it's very stressful, and there's nothing you can really do to give your body and your amygdala chance to restore itself, to recover from this high stress situation, because you're always in it. So that actually made me dig a little bit deeper into, the mindfulness aspect of what we can do to kind of slow our brains down. And there's actually a ton of websites out there about meditation. And I thought that was very interesting, because I definitely think I work full-time and I'm a full-time student, and not always mindful of the stress that is underlying probably all the time, unfortunately. So I think being mindful of your stressors and current stress level, and practicing a daily meditation to clear your mind and allow for that restore and recover phase to occur. Essentially being okay with doing nothing for just a few minutes and just giving your body that chance to go back to where it needs to be, just being more present. So anyway, I loved this project. I thought it was very interesting, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.